Welcome, my name is Chris Morgan. In this video, the 6th or 7th video in our Reactor Subtractive Synth series, I'm going to add a pitch bend. Now we're desperately running out of screen real estate here, and I'm going to hold off for one more video before we do something to fix that using macros. But for now, I'm going to buy us a little more time by moving my objects over here a little bit, and where we'll be focusing will be up here at pitch again, so I can move my pulse width modulation there, maybe move my tremolo and amplitude envelope down a little bit. But things are getting pretty bad here, and we're going to fix that in the next video. Unfortunately, we can't do much about the size of the objects, but we're focusing our attention up here. We have note pitch coming in, we have the vibrato that we did with an LFO earlier, and now we're going to add a controller, a hardware controller at this point. Pitch bend is not like controller messages like volume and pan. It's a dedicated MIDI channel message, so it will show up as its own object in the MIDI in menu. So as I click on built-in, MIDI in, we see there's note pitch and there's pitch bend. Controllers are the grab bag of controller 10 is pan, controller 7 is volume, controller 1 is modulation wheel, controller 2 is breath controller. So there's all these standard controllers and some unassigned controllers, some controllers that were assigned standard messages with general MIDI, and of course there are some unassigned ones, so we have some choices there. So we'll attach a pitch bend and demonstrate how to attach a regular generic controller. I'm using a keyboard that's got some sliders and knobs on it, and those have already been mapped to controller numbers, so we'll look at that second. So I'll choose pitch bend. It shows up like the note pitch message there, and the simple way to hook it up is I'll simply add a pitch bend. The way this one's set up is values of 2 to -2. So the range of pitch bend messages, it's a 14-bit controller, not a controller message, but a 14-bit controller type message, and that means it has a range of plus or minus 8,192. But for our purposes, in a lot of applications, it's just mapped to 0 to 127, -64 to +64. So we will need to add this in to our note pitch and our vibrato. There's not an inlet there, but our solution always is to hold down the command key, drag it to the ... and it adds the thing. And now you can't see this, but on my pitch bend control, I'll set my depth, my pulse width modulation down to 0. I play a note, and as I slide the pitch bend up, I get pitch bend up and down. So that's that. Now, very, very easy to do. The next level, though, of assigning controllers is really easy to do in Reactor. They make this super simple. There's an icon for MIDI here. It used to have an L on it, but it basically means MIDI Learn. So again, I've got these controllers on my MIDI controller. I might map one of my knobs to depth and one to rate of the vibrato. So as you can see, those are down here, my LFO vibrato depth and LFO vibrato rate. The way it works is a 3-step process. I click on the panel controller, depth in this case. I click on the MIDI icon, that sets it in learn mode, and then I simply move the controller on my hardware, and you can see automatically it's mapped to that. If we look at the connect functions here, you can see it's turned on activate MIDI in, and it's set it to controller, and it heard the first message it heard was when I moved the knob, and it was controller 75, so it automatically did that. We'll repeat that for rate. I click on rate, click on MIDI, and I'll move the next knob over, and it's just assigned it to rate. And you can see that's controller 76. So I will set that there. I'll go ahead and map the next two, depth of my pulse width modulation to this knob, rate of my pulse width modulation to this knob, and depth of my tremolo to this knob. You can't see these knobs, of course, and the rate there. So I've mapped 6 controllers in just a matter of seconds, and I will set them all down to 0 rate, 0 depth, and then we'll just play a chord and listen to me turn those on. So here's vibrato. And here's our pulse width modulation. And now tremolo. I'm going to set this to sine there. So I'll have them all going. Not the prettiest sound, but so there you have it. And I'll turn them all down. Turning all the depths down basically turns all of the LFO modulations off. So we're totally out of room here. The next video will feature creating macros to encapsulate these big chunks of things into objects to clear up some screen real estate. And after that, we do our filter with an envelope generator and an LFO, and we are done with a subtractive synth.